Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be doing a little quick tutorial on a 90s supermodel glam look. So first we're starting off with a clean base. I'm going to go in and prep my skin with some of the Bioma Moisturizing Gel Cream. This is a triceramide complex, so this will help just kind of like brighten up my skin a little bit, kind of deal with some of those bags. Now I'm taking the Fit Me foundation, which is my Holy Grail foundation, works for my skin, doesn't break me out. It is non-comedogenic for acne sufferers. I have had acne my entire life, more so recently as I am getting older, approaching my mid-20s, things kind of have cooled down for me, adjusted my diet, etc. I can do a separate video on how I've kind of, managed my skin. So this is in the shade 102, Fair Porcelain, and we're going to even out the base in a very thin layer of foundation. We're working in thin layers and we're not doing anything too thick or cakey, okay? Because a lot of those 90s supermodels had very glowy, beautiful, picture perfect, and in real life, perfect skin. And a lot of that is done through thin layers of makeup. Now we're going to go in and do some concealer. This is my new favorite concealer. This is the L'Oreal Infallible Longwear Full Coverage Concealer. And this is in the shade Porcelain as well in 320. We're going to do a lot of brightening. So we're going to place this right under the eye and we're going to drag it down a little bit. I had some remnants of eyeliner on my eyes from during the day that I did not scrub off very well when I redid this. But anyway, we're going to highlight under the brow bone. We're going to do a lot of dragging that concealer down. And I even put a little bit of concealer on my neck. I had a couple like small spots that I wanted to kind of just like cover up. We're going to do a lot of brightening. Then we're going to take the CoverGirl Skin Enhancer, sort of like it's like a contour stick, and it's in the shade Defined. I'm actually going to dip the Beauty Blender into it, and then I'm going to go ahead and dot it on the areas that I want to contour and define. I already have a very strong jawline, so I don't want to over define and create too much of a harsh look. So based upon your face shape, I would go and put contouring where you need it. So I am a little bit fair right now. So I kind of just went in and I went ahead and I just contoured some of the areas, and then I also went in and put that on my chest just to even it out, because whatever is happening on the face, we also want to match that down into the shoulders, into the chest, maybe even the arms. So this has a little bit more of a green, sort of like an ash base to it, and we're going with more of a cool tone, so that's perfect. So I don't want a warm contour, and I'm really going to blend this in very well because I don't want any remnants of like too much of a green tint left behind. But we're going to go and blend very well. These earrings were super heavy, but they went with the look. All right, so after I go ahead and manage all of the contouring, I am going to fill in my eyebrows. So I'm going to do more of a strong brow, just because we're doing sort of like a catwalk look, so we want the brows to really like shape the face. We really want them to be bold and strong. But at the same time, we don't want to fill them in too thick, because if we're doing a 90s look, we know that the brows are typically always thin, but dark and strong. And I'm going to take a little bit of a highlighter from ColourPop. This is in Pink Pony. And I'm going to illuminate all the areas where light, photography, camera flash is going to catch. And I went in with their liquid blushes as well. The main blush I'm using is Princess Avenue. This is like a nudie pink. It's going to look a little bit strong at first, but liquid blush always fades out. So I'm going to put a little bit more on than I usually would, just because on the pictures that I'm going to take, I really want this to pick up very well. And then I'm going to take a more mauve shade. I'm going to go ahead and put that over, because I want to keep this from going to, nudie pink. I still want this to kind of like have an ashy, reflect sort of look. And then I'm going to blend that right on top, kind of mixing those blushes together. A lot of makeup artists back in the day mixed a lot of different blushes and contour shades together to curate what they wanted for the look and for the skin tone and for that model in particular. So that's kind of what I did in this look, was I curated what I wanted, what would look best for my skin tone. And then I'm going to powder right under the eye, and I'm going to get the T-zone as well, just because I'm super oily. So anything that I do, any type of makeup, gets oily quick if I don't do some type of powdering. And now we're going to move on and we're going to start with the eye. I'm using the Makeup Revolution Monster Mattes palette. This is a great palette for people who like versatile makeup looks and are always changing it up. So I'm going to use a little bit of a white eyeshadow shade in that brow bone area. And I'm going to go ahead and create a highlight effect up there. I want to start off with doing this so that once I start shaping that smoky eye, I'm not bleeding the smoky eye too far up. I kind of have a point of cutoff and reference. And then again, I'm also highlighting with one of the, I think this is Morphe palettes, and I'm taking the lightest shades and I'm using that as a highlighter. Highlighting that brow bone first, like I said, so I know where my stopping and starting points are, and I'm creating a barrier for the smoky eye. And for the smoky eye, it's very dark, but we're going to start off with the lightest gray shade that I owned. And we're going to start morphing that cat eye sort of eyeshadow look with this light gray. And we're going to create the shape with a very light shadow rather than starting with a dark shadow. This is the trick, is you want to mold it with something lighter first so that you're not creating a very like messy, dark, black look that gets out of control very quickly, especially if you're like new to makeup. And this also helps to just like create a nice shade. And so I'm just, you know, working and creating that V shape, and I really want to wing this out because I want to accentuate that kind of like smaller eye shape that some of the models had. Like Claudia Schiffer, she had like sort of a smaller eye, but it was sort of like a pulled back look, a very contoured cheekbone, a very pulled back eye, and very muggy. That's what I would call it, like a muggy supermodel look, you know, very winged out. All right, so now I'm going to go in with sort of like a toffee, coffee brown, cool tone brown shade, and I'm going to take this onto the lid. And I'm going to work that in. I'm not bringing it too high up. I'm only doing it a little bit above the lid, and then I'm also winging that out as well into that grayish color, and I'm blending those two. And now we can kind of see that that shape is starting to come along of that tapered, pulled out sort of V-shape shadow. And I'm also not going past where that powder is. That powder is also a barrier, and then that white highlight at the top is also my barrier as well. And then I start going in with darker shades slowly and building, and then I'm using like a brunette, dark brown shade, dark coffee shade, and I'm blending that into the outer corner and bringing it in just slightly into the crease, bringing it underneath the eye as well to kind of start getting a framework for like smudging some, you know, eyeliner on the bottom as well, because we're going to smudge, of course, with an eyeliner. And I'm just continuing to work at it and punch at it, basically. Now we can finally introduce some of the black to create that stronger look. So I'm actually going to start with that on the lash line and just smudge it on the lash line, smudge it on the lash line, and then wing it out to the very outer edges, a little underneath, and just a tiny bit into the crease. Now, bear in mind, I have very small eyes, so I have to be careful to not let it overpower, but kind of let it have an underpowering effect just where I need it, but not bringing it up too far. Then I'm taking almost like a burnt orange shade, and I'm actually going to put that kind of near the inner corner, like area, crease area there, and I'm going to pat that all over the lid, just because I want to keep some form of lightness. I don't want this all the way to be a black smoky eye. I want this to be like a burnt brown, golden in the inner half of the eye with a very strong dark brown black on the outer corner is kind of what I'm going for, not an all over black smoky eye. I still want to keep some form of brown and some form of warmth in there. And then I'm going in with black again into the already shaped areas and then placing it in there. And see, that's easier when you already have it shaped out, and then you can just fill in almost like a coloring book. That's kind of how I think of it. I create the shapes first, then I fill it in with the darker colors after. And now I'm taking this pointed eyeshadow eyeliner brush, and I'm just going to dip that in some of the black from the palette, and I'm going to smudge it all over the bottom lash line and then the top lash line and kind of get messy with it. Just smudge it in there, use that as an eyeliner. And then I'm even going to create a wing with the eyeshadow, the black eyeshadow, and I'm going to wing that out following the line of that sort of like V-shaped eyeshadow. And this is going to create as well a shape to follow for the actual liquid eyeliner. Now I'm having some water because this got intense, I guess. And see how that sort of coffee, burnt brown, orange sort of color brings out some color in my eyes. That's kind of the goal, is to have a smoky eye that's tailored to the eye color and making the eye color pop. And then I'm taking a nude liner. It's like a nude sort of plum color. And then I'm going to overline my lips just slightly. And I'm going to let that sit for a second. And then I'm blending out the shadow a little bit. And there's a lot of tweaking that can happen with the smoky eye. I'm always like going in, like tweaking it and shaping it, winging it out further, making it sharper, just as I go along with the process. Now I'm going to take ColourPop's BFF 2 or 3. I might have mixed those 2 and 3 together of those nude lip liners. And now I'm going to fill in the entire inner part of the lip with the ColourPop nude lip liner. I think it's in BFF 2 or BFF 3. Then I'm going to smudge that all together, blend it together. Now we're not done with the lip. I am going to make some edits to the lip because I want it to be more nude. I want it to be a little bit more 90s-esque. All right, so then shaping again. A lot of this look is shaping and defining. What I find in the 90s sort of looks is the makeup artist did a lot of shaping and refining and defining, and even there's a lot of underpainting, into which I can do a tutorial with that as well. And that's sort of a technique where you put the contour on first, basically, and you do some color correcting, and then you go with the foundation over it. I don't really feel the need to do that, like with my face shape, to underpaint. I mean, anybody can do it. I just feel like my jawline is already like pretty sharp. I feel like, you know, I don't really want to underpaint anything necessarily. I feel like I can do everything with a regular look, but it is interesting. It is fun. I think I will do a video on that. And I just took one of those CoverGirl True Blend Skin Enhancers, the baked bronzers, and then I went in and, you know, shaped everything up. And I did a elongated, more exaggerated bronzer on this look. I just went in and made it more strong on the cheekbone, so I just pulled that line closer in to not where my lip is, but kind of like in parallel to where my lip is, to kind of create more of that like muggy, pulled in, contoured look, to kind of like, you know, make it more, you know, sharp. There's sharp lines in this look. You know, the smoky eye has that line, the eyeliner has that line, the contour also has a line where it stops, and same thing with like the jawline contour as well, it's got a line. And as well as with the eyebrows too, because they're elongated, they're sharp on the arch, and they're dark. So we have multiple different lines crossing on this look, and that's what kind of creates that sharp definition that kind of like draws you in and makes you look, is all of the creations of lines and definition. And so that is why a more matted nude lip goes with this, because we already have so much definition occurring. I'm going to take a little bit of that porcelain concealer and put that in the inner part of my lips. So I'm going to just like dab that like 1-2 ever so slightly just on the inner part of the lip, blend that in, and then go back in with the darker brown, plum, whichever shade you choose, lip liner, and then define the outer edges of the lip. And then I'm going back in again with black shadow, defining those outer edges just slightly. And then now we're going to go in with eyeliner. This is kind of optional. You don't have to do eyeliner, but it does help to just create a little bit more definition. So I'm going to wing it out, kind of following where the shadow starts and ends. And then I'm going to go in on the bottom half and I'm going to put liner under there too. And I even did an inner corner cat eye, which was not in any of the example pictures, but I just kind of felt like that created more of like a modern day edge. I feel like that's more popular now than it was back then. I could be wrong about that. I don't know. I might be a little bit too young to know about 90s fashion and makeup. And I'm going to go in with a little bit of some micellar water on this tissue, and I'm going to taper down just a little bit and bring that line down away from the brow bone again, because it's going to etch up. It's going to keep wanting to go up and up, you know, especially if you have a very tiny eye. You only have so much space to work with, and so when you keep distributing more dark eyeshadow, you do have to keep it like under control and just like keep washing it and going sort of in slow motion and painting it. I'm just making the liner a little bit darker. And now I'm mugging the camera. I'm doing a little bit of roller lash by Benefit. I did not want to put on false lashes for this look because I felt like it was going to be too overtaking. If you do want to put on individuals, I mean, that's definitely something you can do to like accentuate the look. I just felt like there's so much going on already with such a dark, you know, eye look, and then so much definition, so many things. I didn't want to really like take away. So I just packed on a lot of eyeliner and then stabbed myself in the eye with a wand like I usually do because I don't really look when I put on that, I guess. I'm going in again with a little bit more concealer on the inner part of the lip because I felt like the lip was still a little bit too dark for what I wanted. So you can always just like kind of layer that on, and then I powder over it too a little bit. And anyway, I was going to go back on with the ColourPop BFF2. Now I'm doing the ColourPop powder blush in, what shade was that? New to You. It's kind of like a nudie, bronzy sort of blush with a little bit of nude pink in there. And then I'm going to accentuate some moles that are kind of there already and that got covered up by makeup, and I'm kind of just bringing them back out. Then we're going to go in with a very ashy, cool-toned highlighter, the Too Faced powder highlighter in Fairy Dust Disco Crush. And we're really going to hit that brow bone pretty strong because I want to keep that definition there. I want to keep all the high points highlighted, and I don't want them to get overshadowed by all of the darkness that we have created on the eye. And I winged out that eyeshadow quite a lot, elongated it. For a small eye, typically a darker eyeliner with a very smudged out eyeshadow is best fitting for somebody that has a face shape like I do and the type of eye that I do. And I added a little bit of gold. This was from a Sigma palette, and it was just like the lightest gold shade. And then I brushed out my hair. I did put on just a couple clip-in extensions just to add a little bit of length because my hair is more medium length and not super long right now. And then you can take a bigger brush, and wherever your bronzer or the contour got a little harsh, you can just blend it out. I did a couple different takes of reblending and reshaping again and again because it's all about just creating the shapes that you want to see and the colors that you want to build on. Your makeup can never really be messed up necessarily. You can always go back in, make tweaks, make edits, continue to keep reshaping and creating what you want to see. That's the way that I look at it as an artist. I really don't label myself like a makeup artist or hair artist or any type of artist in particular. I always just label myself just an artist of just like life in general in creations, because everything can be tweaked, edited, reshaped, redefined, redone, you know. And that is a lot of the work that 90s makeup artists did, was definition, reshaping, following lines, color correcting, underpainting, all those things. Then I used Juvia's Place in Chic right on top for the center of the lip, and that just gave it the perfect 90s nude type of look. Thank you guys so much for watching. I have a lot of new content in the works, and check out some of my reels on YouTube. I'm also on